Hello, welcome back to Doe Sol Horror Podcast. I'm glad you could join us again, and if you're joining us for the first time, I am Doe, and with me is my friend Soli, and we are both into horror, just like you, I'm guessing, if you're lurking around here.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out our first episode, you can check it out now, and we shared and discussed tales from Portugal and Singapore the last time.
Also, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. We also upload a podcast there. Since most of the times our stories have visuals, it will be great if you follow our YouTube channel and check out our podcast there. You can always Google them, but it will help you to know what exactly we are talking about.
And if you like, you can also follow us or join our Discord channel. We would love to interact with our listeners and listen to the stories they might have to share. Now today, in this two-part episode, we will share some stories about female entities we know about. So for today, I will share one or even two stories with you and see how you like them.
Yee. Okay, let's go. Let's see. What's the first entity? I'm excited.
Okay, so the first tale I want to share with you today is something I have been told when I stayed in England.
Okay.
I was thinking about it and I'm trying to recall it, and I wanted to follow it up with a story that is not by me, which we will credit. And because I was
Okay.
a little unsure I was a little unsure if I might leave something out because I don't want to miss out on any important details of the folklore. So,
Oh, okay.
the story that I've been told, I would say approximately, it could have already been almost 10 years ago, was about a little farm in, I believe it was Kerry, that a family of four lived in. And it was like your typical family. It was a family of mom, dad, son, and daughter. And they were like just around dinner time, preparing dinner, children outside playing, and it was the son and the daughter were out and about in the garden in the just a field area generally. And when the sun kind of started coming down in like late autumn, I'd say, they were called inside for dinner. And the mom called out, told her son to get his sister, let's go inside, go eat. And he was up looking for his sister, most likely after a game of hide and seek, looking around for her, calling her name as well. And while he was looking, he wandered around the back of the farm and the family home. And out in the fields, he spotted like a figure. It was like the fields, they stretched out quite a bit and ended at the edge of the woods, which is the wooded area. He was completely distracted. He no further didn't pay any more mind to looking for his sister and just watched that white figure, like this very clearly white figure in the distance. And he just couldn't make out what that was. It was like, is it moving? Is it standing still? Like, he would just not know. Anyways, after, let's say, a minute, his mom called again, and he was like, oh, okay, let's go. I have to go find my sister. And he was looking around again, like calling for his sister, and eventually also found her, of course. So they made their way back, and on the way back to the front door, he once again looked out into the distance to the wooded area, and then he saw the entity again, figure, whatever it was, and it was very clearly in the fields now, no longer at the edge of the woods, very clearly in the fields. So it came closer. That obviously frightened him severely, and he took his sister by his hand and ran inside. They had dinner at the dinner table. He thought about it more, and towards the end of dinner he mentioned this to his parents. He was like, there's something in the fields. Like, I'm not sure if it might be like a deer, very very light deer, if it's an animal, it seems to be standing very still. He just couldn't explain it to himself, told his parents about it, and they were like, that's weird. So the whole family went out behind the house and checked the area, and they were all very clearly seeing a white figure standing in the middle of a field. And the son, of course, also told them this figure moved. Like, I saw whatever this is at the edge of the woods, and it's now much closer to our home. And they weren't like necessarily completely alone in the area, but I mean, it's a farm. There weren't like any houses where you just could walk over. And whatever it was nighttime, and it was harder and harder to see. It got quite late, it got dark, and the parents told their children, we have to go to bed. Obviously, they were all quite scared, like, and the father was like, should I go check out what this is? Or if it's a prankster, should I go, like, tell them to leave? So, after the family went to bed, obviously still very nervous, especially the kids, they eventually all fell asleep. And in the middle of the night, they all awoke by the most blood-curdling scream they have ever heard in their life. Like, immediately, the son shot up in his bed. He could hear his parents in the hallway, in the house, roaming about. He also left his room. The lights were on. Nobody knew, like, what that was, screaming in the middle of the night. And it was close. It was loud, it was close, and it was the most awful sound they have ever heard in their life. So, obviously, the father, the mom, they went out, they got their flashlight, like, what is happening here? And they obviously kept listening for it again, and it was dead silent. They all three now, with the little daughter in the doorway outside, being scared, looking around. The son and the parents were standing in the front, in the yard, looking around with the flashlight, absolute silence, and they were trying to listen. Did something hunt? It was very unlikely that something around the area hunt, and especially sheep, goats, whatever. Nothing would scream like this, and it was dead silent. Just imagine, absolute silence. And then out of nowhere, the same scream, loud, wailing, and they said this sounded like it was next to them. It was just nothing close to them. I mean, it was dark, but they had their flashlight. There was nothing standing next to them, and something screamed at the top of their lungs. The father, they all scurried back inside. They had no idea what was going on. Absolute nightmare. So obviously none of them were able to sleep again. The father was like trying to call around, like call neighbors. Again, they weren't this remote that nobody else could have heard this. It was loud. And when the sun came out in the morning, slowly starting getting a little light, they were again looking around. They didn't hear it scream again. But when the sun came up, as you can probably already tell, and they went out to look around, they were expecting to find a dead animal somewhere. They looked, and at the edge of their field, again, the white figure. But this time, they would clearly, since it was even closer to the house, they were very clearly seeing that it was a woman. It was a woman, white, her gown white, her hair white, her face white, all of it white. And it was just, they were unsure if it was standing there. Her hair definitely seemed to be floating, like it wasn't just hanging down, it seemed to be floating. And she would very clearly look at them and backwards kind of float back to the wooded area. And this time they very clearly saw it moving. It went back inside the wooded area. They all stared at it until it was gone. That it shook them up quite severely, obviously, and after they didn't find any dead animals, they again went to their neighbor's farm, called them even, and were asking around, like, did an animal come around? Like, did something get eaten? Did something get killed? And all of them were like, no, no, no. And then after several different neighbors they asked, they got to one neighbor that was 1 or 2 kilometers maybe away, not very far, in another farm. And apparently the neighbor's wife died that night.
Oh.
So if you haven't already guessed what I just told you a story about, it is the story of the Irish banshee.
Oh. I have never heard this story. I didn't even know there was something called as Irish banshee.
So the banshee is an entity. I'm not sure if she's a ghost. She's an entity that is said to despise the living. That's why I say, like, I'm unsure if she can be called a ghost. Like, also, I don't want to say anything that's wrong.
Yeah.
At this point, I also very clearly want to encourage somebody who's listening and knows about the backstory of the banshee, the proper Irish backstory of the banshee, to, of course, if they want to, please share with us what the backstory is. It is so interesting, and I would very much like to hear about it. And I don't want to say anything wrong. It originates in Ireland, that I am sure of, and she is said to scream and wail. And if you hear the sound, it means that somebody soon will die. If you hear the scream of the banshee, she predicts death.
Oh,
Therefore,
okay.
the story has been passed down I don't know how many times. I don't know who came up with it originally. I just heard it from a friend who I think is not even Irish, and
Okay.
who probably only heard it from a friend of a friend of a friend, and so on. But I remember, like, I think it was like, how old was I? Like, it was 9 years ago, and they told the story on Halloween. Actually, we were at a party, and we like I was absolutely, like, everybody else was kind of like, oh yeah, story of a banshee. Like, we all know about this, and I was just like, oh my
What?
god, like I like, my reaction to this was, it was awful. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, that was the story that I've been passed down, and it fucking scared me back then. Like, I remember.
Yeah. I mean, I've never even heard of a banshee or banshee. I don't know how to pronounce it. But basically, I've never heard of it until I played Phasmophobia. I didn't even know, like, what's a banshee. Like,
Yeah, and I don't even think that's like an accurate description. So
yeah.
there's this one picture I found, and this is kind of like, she's always said to be either an old woman or like a young woman that is like, that appears to be half dead, you know?
Oh, okay.
Like that, like sort of a bit of a corpse like
a
figure.
zombie. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm absolutely certain there's more.
Yeah.
Like, she appears in all different forms. I'm pretty sure, like, many people. I don't want to say anything wrong about the original folklore about it. So what I've always heard, it's a white woman, and like she's
Yeah.
scary looking, ghastly looking, but the worst thing about it is the scream and the wailing. And if you hear that again,
That
it
means
means
doom
somebody's
is
going
near.
to die.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that is the story about the banshee.
Like, I remember, like, searching for banshee when after I played Phasmophobia, and then I saw pictures of her, and most of the pictures I saw were like an old woman, and
Yeah.
again, it was like, I think the picture I saw was an old woman with white hair, and she's wearing light colored clothes. I'm guessing it's white. And then in a weird way, she looked beautiful but also terrifying at the same time. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
If I find the picture, I'll insert it. But yeah, I think it was more like an artist's drawing. But yeah,
Mhm.
it is like how you described it, like white clothes, white hair, white face. Like, it's really pale face. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I think the story is like just the thought of it is so scary that many people also made it into like news stories.
Yeah.
I think there's also a movie called Banshee, which I only heard good things about. I've never watched it though.
Okay.
And I think it's just quite popular, and then like people kind of like do their own twist on it as well. But as far as I've heard, the Banshee itself doesn't really do anything to you. Like it just means somebody is about to die. And I think maybe I don't even know if I don't even think she kills them. It just means death is imminent and she knows about it.
Oh, so she's just like, what would you say, like a harbinger of death, like a messenger that, oh, bad thing
Maybe.
is gonna happen to you, or someone's gonna die in your family. So, oh, okay.
Yeah, again, would really love to know if there like what I know there's more to it, especially
Yeah.
the original folklore, and if somebody knows, please let us know.
Yes, please, because we barely know. Like, especially me, after you told me the story, before that, I barely knew about Banshee. Like, I didn't even know it was Irish, honestly. I mean, I was visualizing that woman just standing there, and it was so creepy. Like, if there's a woman standing like that outside my house, I'd be so creeped out.
Just generally like an apparition, just standing and staring. So,
I don't know. I don't know why I was visualizing that I was in my native place, because my native place, I mean, it's in the countryside and it's full of farms. And for some reason, I always, so basically, my house in the native place, the toilets are outside. Like, it's not inside the house. It's outside. It's disconnected. So I remember at night, like, I had to go out. Like, in the middle of the night, if I have to pee, I had to go out. And I used to get so creeped out by that. And I don't know why I always thought that I will see some crazy woman out there, or I'll see some entity and I'll literally pee myself right then and there. But thankfully that never happened. But yeah, I was always terrified to like pee in the middle of the night. And sometimes I remember I used to hold my pee the entire night. Yeah, I don't know why I was just picturing that sight, but yeah. Oh, okay.
no, like I always thought of the Banshee as insanely frightening. But again, what I never got is like, is she actually killing people, or is she just
Ah.
telling people that somebody will get killed? Yeah.
Okay. So, you said you have a second story for us
Yes,
today?
I have a second story in store.
Okay.
This story has not been passed down to me. This story is a story I heard of before.
Okay.
Not really sure from by who or if I read it online, but I looked it up and found one of the many different stories about this again entity, and we will credit the website and the creator in the comments.
Yes, and the description or and the description or the episode info for Spotify. Yeah.
Exactly. And I just want to make sure everybody knows this story is not by us.
Yep.
The story I am about to tell you is the story called 8 Feet Tall.
Ooh. Wait. Why do I feel like I know what's coming? But okay, go ahead.
Every summer, my parents would take me to see my grandparents on holiday to visit them in Japan. They lived in a small village and they had a big backyard. I loved to play there during the summer. When we arrived, my grandparents always welcomed me with open arms. I was their only grandchild, so they spoiled me. The last time I saw them was the summer when I was 8 years old. As usual, my parents booked a flight to Japan, and we drove from the airport to my grandparents' house. They were delighted to see me and had a lot of little presents to give me. My parents wanted to have some time by themselves, so after a few days, they took a trip to another part of Japan, leaving me in the care of my grandma and grandpa. One day, I was playing out in the backyard. My grandparents were inside the house. It was a hot summer's day, and I lay down on the grass to rest. I stared up at the clouds and enjoyed the feeling of the soft rays of the sun and the gentle breeze. Just as I was about to get up, I heard a strange sound.
Pull, 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 pull.
I didn't know what it was, and it was hard to figure out where it was coming from. It sounded almost like somebody was making the noise themselves, as if they were just saying pull, pull, pull over and over again in a deep, masculine voice. I was looking around, searching for the source of the noise, when I suddenly noticed something on top of the tall hedges that enclosed the backyard. It was a straw hat. It wasn't resting on the hedge, it was behind it. That's where the sound was coming from.
Pull, 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 pull.
Then the hat began to move, as if someone was wearing it. The hat stopped at a small gap in the hedge, and I could see a face peering through. It was a woman, but the hedges were high, almost 8 feet tall. I was surprised at how tall the woman was. I wondered if she was wearing stilts or some sort of huge high-heeled shoes. Then, a split second later, she walked off and the strange noise disappeared with her, fading into the distance. Bewildered, I got up and wandered back into the house. My grandparents were in the kitchen drinking tea. I sat down at the table and, after a while, I told my grandparents what I have seen. They weren't really paying attention to me until I mentioned that distinctive sound.
Pull, pull, pull.
As soon as I said that, both of them suddenly froze. Grandma's eyes grew wide and she covered her mouth with her hand. Grandpa's face became very serious and he grabbed me by the arm. "This is very important," he said in an intense voice. "You must tell us exactly. How tall was she?" "As tall as the garden hedge," I replied, beginning to get scared. My grandfather bombarded me with questions. "Where was she standing? When did this happen? What did you do? Did she see you?" I tried to answer all his questions as best as I could. He suddenly rushed out the hallway and made a phone call. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I looked over at my grandma and she was trembling. Grandpa came back into the room and spoke to my grandmother. "I've got to go out for a while," he said. "You stay here with the child. Don't take your eyes off him, even for 1 second." "What's going on, Grandpa?" I cried. He looked at me with a sad expression in his eyes and said, "You've been liked by the Hachishaku-sama." With that, he hurried out, got into his truck and drove off. I turned to my grandma and cautionally asked, "What is that?" "Don't worry," she replied in a shaking voice. "Grandpa will do something. There is no need to worry." As we sat nervously in the kitchen, waiting for my grandfather to come back, she explained what was happening. She told me there was a dangerous thing that was haunting the area. They call it Hachishaku-sama because of its height. In Japanese, it means 8 feet tall. It takes on the appearance of an extremely tall woman and it makes a sound like
Pull, pull, pull.
in a deep male voice. It appears slightly different depending on who sees it. Some say it looks like a haggard old woman in a kimono, and others say it's a girl in a white funeral shroud. One thing that never changes is its height and the sound it makes. A long time ago, it was captured by monks, and they managed to confine it in a ruined building on the outskirts of the village. They trapped it using 4 small religious statues, and they placed them at the north, south, and east and west of the ruins, and it wasn't supposed to be able to move from there. Somehow it managed to escape. The last time it appeared was 15 years ago. My grandmother said that anyone who saw 8 feet tall was destined to die within a few days. It all sounded so crazy, I wasn't sure what to believe. When Grandpa came back, there was an old woman with him. She introduced herself and handed me a small, crumpled piece of parchment, saying, "Here, take this and hold it." Then she and Grandpa went upstairs to do something. I was left alone in the kitchen with my grandmother again. I needed to go to the toilet. Grandma followed me into the bathroom and wouldn't let me shut the door. I was beginning to get really frightened by all this. After a while, Grandpa and the woman took me upstairs and brought me into the bedroom. The windows were covered in newspaper and lots of ancient runes had been written on them. There were small bowls of salt in all 4 corners of the room, and a small Buddha figure placed at the center of the room on top of a wooden box. There was also a bright blue bucket. "What's the bucket for?" I asked. "That's for you to go to the bathroom." The woman sat me down on the bed and said, "Soon the sun will be settling, so listen carefully. You must stay in this room until tomorrow morning. You must not come out under any circumstances until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Your grandmother and your grandfather will not speak to you or call you until then. Remember, do not leave the room for any reason until then. I will let your parents know what is going on." She spoke in such a grave tone that all I could do was quietly nod my head. "You have to follow these instructions," Grandpa told me, "and never let go of the parchment she gave you. And if anything happens, pray to Buddha, and make sure you lock this door when we leave." They walked out into the hallway, and after saying goodbye to them, I closed the bedroom door and locked it. I turned on the TV and tried to watch, but I was so nervous I felt sick to my stomach. Grandma left some snacks and rice balls for me, but I couldn't eat them. I felt like I was in prison, and I was very depressed and scared. I lay down on the bed and waited. Before I knew it, I was asleep. When I woke up, it was just after 1 a.m. in the morning. All of a sudden, I realized that something was tapping the window. I felt the blood draining from my face, and my heart skipped a beat. I desperately tried to calm myself down, telling myself it was just the wind playing tricks, or maybe the branches of a tree. I turned up the volume on the TV to drown out the tapping noise. Eventually it stopped altogether. That was when I heard Grandpa calling me.
Are you okay in there?
He asked.
If you're scared, you don't have to stay in there all alone. I can come and keep you company.
I smiled and rushed over to the door, but then I stopped in my tracks. I had goosebumps all over my body. It sounded like Grandpa's voice, but somehow it was different. I couldn't tell what that was, but I just knew.
What are you doing?
Grandpa asked.
You can open the door now.
I glanced to my left, and a chill went down my spine. The salt in the bowls was slowly turning black. I backed away from the door. My whole body was trembling with fear. I fell to my knees in front of the Buddha statue and clutched the piece of parchment tightly in my hand. I started desperately praying for help. "Please save me," I wailed. Then I heard the voice outside the door saying,
Pull, 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 pull.
The tapping on the window started up again. I was overcome by fear, and I crouched there in front of the statue, half crying and half praying for the rest of the night. I felt like it would never end, but eventually it was morning. The salt in all 4 bowls was pitch black. I checked my watch. It was 7:30 a.m. I cautiously opened the door. Grandma and the other woman were standing outside waiting for me. When she saw my face, Grandma burst into tears. "I'm so glad you're still alive," she said. I went downstairs and was surprised to see my father and mother sitting in the kitchen. Grandpa came in and said, "Hurry up, we've got to get going." We went to the front door, and there was a large black van waiting in the driveway. Several men from the village were standing around it, pointing at me and whispering, "That's the boy." The van was an 8-seater, and they put me in the middle, surrounded by 8 men. The woman was in the driver's seat. The man on my left looked down at me and said, You've got yourself in quite a spot of trouble. I know you're probably worried. Just keep your head down and your eyes shut. We can't see it, but you can. Don't open your eyes until we've got you safely out of here." Grandpa drove in front and Dad's car was following behind. When everyone was ready, our little convoy started moving. We were going fairly slow. After a while, the woman said, "This is where it gets hard," and started muttering a prayer under her breath. That was when I heard the voice.
Pull, 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 pull.
I clutched the parchment paper she gave me and tightly squeezed it in my hand. I kept my head down, but I peeked outside. I saw a white dress fluttering in the breeze. It was moving along with the van. It was her. She was outside the window, but she was keeping pace with us. Then suddenly she bent down and peered into the van. "No!" I gasped. The man beside me shouted, "Close your eyes!" I immediately shut my eyes as hard as I could and tightened my grip on the piece of parchment. Then the tapping began. The voice became louder.
Pull, pull, pull.
There was a tapping on the windows all around us. All of the men in the van were startled on edge, muttering nervously to themselves. They couldn't see her, and they couldn't hear her voice, but they could hear her tapping on the windows. The older woman started praying louder and louder until she was almost shouting. The tension inside the van was unbearable. After a while, the tapping stopped and the voice disappeared. The older woman looked back at us and said, "I think we're safe now." All of the men around me breathed a sigh of relief. The van pulled over to the side of the road and the men got out. They transferred me into my dad's car. My mother held me close and tears were running down her cheeks. Grandpa and my father bowed to the men and they went into their way. The older woman came to the window and asked me to show her the piece of parchment she had given me. When I opened my hand, I saw that it had gone completely black. "I think you will be okay now," she said. "But to be sure, hold on to this for a while." She handed me a new piece of parchment. After that, we drove straight to the airport and Grandpa saw us safely onto the plane. When we took off, my parents breathed a sigh of relief as well. My father told me he had heard about the woman that was 8 feet tall before. Years ago, his friend had been liked by her. The boy disappeared and was never seen again. My father said there were other people who had been liked by her and lived to tell about it. They all had to leave Japan and settle down in foreign countries. They were never able to go back to their homeland. She always chooses children as her victims. They say it's because children are dependent on their parents and family members. This makes them easier to deceive when she poses as their relatives. He said the men in the van were all blood relatives of mine, and that's why they had been sitting all around me and why my father and Grandpa had been driving in front and in the back. It was all done to try to confuse her. It took a while to contact everyone and get them all together, so that was why I had to be confined in the room all night. He told me that one of the little statues, the ones that were meant to keep her trapped, had been broken, and that was how she escaped. It gave me the chills. I was glad when we finally got back home. All of this happened more than 10 years ago. I haven't seen my grandparents since then. I haven't been able to so much as set foot into the country. Afterwards, I would call them every few weeks and talk to them on the phone. Over the years, I tried to convince myself that it was just an urban legend, that everything that happened was just some elaborate prank. But sometimes I'm not so sure. My grandfather died 2 years ago. When he was sick, he wouldn't allow me to visit him, and he left strict instructions in his will that I wasn't to attend his funeral. It was all very sad. My grandmother called a few days ago. She said that she had been diagnosed with cancer. She missed me terribly and wanted to see me one last time before she died. "Are you sure, Grandma?" I asked. "Is it safe?" "It's been 10 years," she said. "All that happened a long time ago. It's all forgotten. You're all grown up now. I'm sure there won't be a problem." "But what about the woman?" I said. For a moment there was a silence on the other end of the phone. Then I heard a deep voice saying,
Pull, pull, pull.
Wow.
that is the story of.
Oh God. Of course it has to be Japan. Like Japan has some crazy stories. Oh my God. Okay, so I don't know why when you said 8 feet tall, I don't know, for some reason I thought you were gonna talk about Slender Man, but then I was like, wait, Slender Man is a man. Oh, okay. I've never heard of this story. This is creepy as shit. Oh my God.
Yeah, and at this
Wow.
point, I already want to say sorry if I mispronounced the name. I did my best. I have no idea how to pronounce Japanese names, and I really, really hope I did an okay job. And if I didn't, I'm really sorry.
What? Why would you reveal yourself if you like that boy? If you like that boy, why would you reveal yourself at the end? Like, damn it, he would have come to Japan if you didn't do that po at the end.
Yeah,
You just gave it away.
yeah. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe it wasn't his grandma at all.
Yeah.
Who even called him? You know.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it was unsuccessful.
Unsuccessful. Yeah.
Yeah, whoever called, like the grandma called him, right?
Yeah. At the end.
So it was
When he was.
yeah, it was, there was no point. Like she just gave it away. Like I'm pretty sure he would have, if you didn't do that po sound, he would have come to you. So I think this ghost is a little bit dumb, or maybe, it's like the ghost has, what do you say? A verbal tick. So some people have verbal ticks, right? So maybe the ghost has that, and unfortunately she gave it away.
Yeah.
Wow, but this is really, yeah. I feel like now I'll have to. Oh my God. I'll think about this all night now. Damn it.
You're welcome.
Wow, this is creepy. Ooh.
Yeah, I know. It's like these entities that if they decide they want to get you, they will get you, and there's really nothing you can do besides, I guess, leave the country.
Yeah, but that's the sad part, like you don't get to go back to Japan ever, or basically a homeland, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a horror. Like if I don't get to go back to my own home. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Creepy. You know which part got me, like when I read it the first time?
Yeah.
Like that was something that I haven't heard of before. Like I knew about this story, I think, but
Oh.
I was just kind of like, well, I heard something about this, and then I researched it, and then I found it again. The part where she bowed down to look inside the window,
Yeah.
Really,
Oof.
because that was kind of like, where is he? I'm not sure. I know he's in this van, but which of them is he? Because they tried to distract her, and then when he peeked, she
Yeah.
knew, and she stared right at him. I'm like, ugh.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh. But basically, she doesn't kill them. Like the bodies are never found, right? Just the people disappear, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Oh,
that's what they said in the story, at least.
yeah. Because I mean, the way they say that you have been liked, it
Yeah.
makes me wonder, like, what is she doing with them? Like, what? Oh, that is creepy. Oh my God. I wonder if there are any pictures. Like,
There are.
let me
People
just check out.
people did a lot of like fan fiction, but I mean, it's just in the end, it's a woman. It's just a very tall woman, and
Okay. But I mean, I don't think so. The story described her as looking creepy. Did it?
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, exactly. So it's just that she's grotesquely tall.
Yeah.
That's the only weird part. But yeah. Oh, wow. That was a good one.
I found one picture that is like, I think that is pretty much exactly what I described when like that creepy part when she was looking inside the van. I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but like that one got me a bit. Like that one was
Whoa,
creepy.
whoa. That picture is creepy.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, every ghost has some kind of weakness. So basically her weakness is that she says those words. She doesn't speak, but she says those words, and that gives it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
like, I mean, it seemed like she was kind of confined to this area of his
Yeah.
grandparents.
So I was
Village.
wondering, like, why don't you just stay out of the village? Like, why do you have to leave Japan itself? Like, maybe is it because she will call and harass you or something? Like, just like
Yeah,
she
I
kind
wasn't.
of.
I'm not sure. Maybe she will find you when you're
Oh,
in
the
the
same
country.
country. Because
I mean,
Japan is an island and she can't go beyond an island. Like, what? Ooh.
maybe. I don't know.
This reminds me of like when that po thing happened. Like when at the end she basically gave her identity away. You know, I think I don't know. I heard it from one of my friends where I think in Chinese, there's a Chinese folklore or something similar where apparently there is a certain ghost or all ghosts, I don't know. Apparently they walk in a straight line. They are unable to
Or on corners.
yeah, so basically turn. So that is the reason why apparently you will see a lot of temples, a lot of houses. The pathway is never straight. It's always like a few curves. And now that I've noticed, like I have noticed in some houses or in temples, and I'm like, oh yeah, that is true. Like, why is it that way? Wow. Okay.
I mean, there is like long straight hallways are known to be creepy as well, right?
Yeah. Ooh. Wow, this story was really good. I really liked it.
Yeah. I couldn't wait to tell you this one. I felt like, for some reason, I was trying to pick one that is quite known, something
okay.
many people have already heard of, and then something that is not so popular. Like, I am sure in Japan this story is probably much more known than in our areas. But I think like the Banshee is something like that again, there's movies, there's video games, and I think this is what makes something like very popular. And the Banshee, like the Banshee is kind of like she doesn't seem. I'm still not sure if she is actually dangerous or not.
Yeah, I feel like Banshee is quite harmless. She doesn't do anything except creep people out or scare the heck out of people. And with her appearance and her blood-curdling screams, I guess.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yeah.
And I'm always trying to think like, where might this come from? You know, like how were they? In our first episode, for example, we were both agreeing that those stories probably came from cautionary tales to prevent people from doing certain things, especially children, to stay out too far. And with the Banshee, I'm kind of like, I mean, a blood-curdling scream and then you find someone dead, that kind of has a connection.
Yeah.
A very logical one.
I wonder, like, I mean, with the Banshee, you said that the farmer's wife died. So I just didn't get the point where, I mean, was the Banshee the farmer's wife, or was she kind of predicting that this wife is gonna die?
She was predicting.
Oh, okay. So now that makes me wonder, where did this Banshee thing come from? Like, I thought that, oh, maybe she was killed by the farmer, and then she was kind of coming to their house saying, like, I'm dead, like, come look for me. So I thought it's something like
no,
that.
no. No, I don't think at all that the banshee is a ghost or a lost
Oh,
spirit or something. The banshee literally
yeah.
just a bad omen, basically.
Hmm.
That's how I interpreted it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I know in India, like apparently if a cat cries, it's a bad omen. Like something bad is
That's
gonna happen.
I don't even want to know how often a day I hear, like, my cat tends to be very vocal,
Yeah.
the cat I have at home, and like if that means someone's dying, like,
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
guess goodbye humanity.
But like honestly, the sound of the cat crying, it's really terrifying. Like I remember like uh I used to live in this area and there were a lot of stray cats over there, and I think twice or thrice I've heard a cat crying, and it was crying in the middle of the night, and it terrified the shit out of me because I couldn't sleep the entire night. And next day in school, I was like literally kind of falling asleep because I couldn't sleep. I was so terrified because honestly, it sounds like it's a baby crying, but also mixed with an animal crying, and also sometimes it felt like there was a woman crying. So there were times where I used to think that, oh, maybe it's a woman crying, maybe it's a witch crying, I don't know. So
Yeah. So there's like the cat cries I absolutely hate is when two male cats are fighting and get territorial, because then they do start sounding like humans. They make sounds that are very close to human. And there is I'm trying to think of the English word for it. I know there's a German word for it, but I'm not sure about the English one that literally describes, I don't want to say something wrong now, but I think it is a birth defect in children that makes them cry like cats. And in German, it is literally called the cat cry syndrome, that makes newborns, when they scream, sound like cats. And I think it's a defect. I'm not quite sure. I have to read up on that. So, but that's a thing. And the first time I heard this, I was like, that is creepy as shit. And another thing that people talked about that I've heard before is that there's a theory that cats cry because they see what we do when babies cry. And as pets, they try to do the same thing basically, and they cry and they meow at us because they want food.
or they want attention, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, didn't think of that. Wow.
Yeah. And anyways, we can all agree that cat. But I mean, let's be honest. If you hear a cat in the middle of the night, I'm kind of like, ooh, that's a scary sound, sure. But I'm like, that's a cat. But now imagine you wake up in the middle of the night and you just hear a random baby, like,
Crying, I know, right?
yeah, oh, baby in the middle of the night. That's not.
Yeah.
That's not. Jesus, right? Just imagine like being a new mother and you wake up in the middle of the night of a baby crying. You're not used to it yet, and you're like, just yeet it out the window.
Oh, I think I'll be one of those if that ever happens.
Yeah. So like, her husband just like, can you go change the baby? Hell no, it's creepy as shit.
Oh god. I've heard that. I think it was a those famous two sentences horror stories
Yeah.
where this I don't remember the entire sentence and all, but basically he says that, oh, the laughter of the baby is so cute, but not when it's in the middle of the night and
I know what you mean.
and I don't have a baby.
Yeah, everybody loves the sound of a
Babies.
baby laughing, but not when it's yeah, kind of like that. Not when it's the middle of the night and you're childless.
Yeah. This also reminds me again, babies crying and babies laughing. It reminds me, I don't know if you have seen the movie The Medium.
Remind me, I think I might.
So it's a Thai movie, and I think it came this year or last year.
Oh no, then I haven't seen it.
Okay, so okay, watch it, and it's an effed up movie. Like, I was like, what the hell is? I mean, I wouldn't say it's scary, but it's really weird. But I remember, I think one of the scariest part of the movie is this girl. She makes, she kind of tricks the people into thinking that she has the baby with her, and she makes the sound of a baby crying. And when she's making it, she looks super creepy. And I just remember seeing that scene, and I was like, oh my god, like I don't even. It was quite scary, that scene. Like, even though
It sounds creepy.
It's nothing. The scene is like really simple. She's in a weird position, but she's kind of has that look in her face that she's enjoying that she tricked them. She's making that sound, and she's enjoying the fact that she's making that sound and tricking them. And it's so creepy. Oh my god, that scene is really creepy. If I find it on YouTube, like, I'll link it below, but I feel like you guys should watch the movie. It's a really good movie. It's a bit effed up, but yeah, you should watch it, definitely.
Yeah, but that sounds creepy, especially. I think generally, unhuman sounds coming from something that looks like a human. That's just, it feels wrong. There's like this theory. I'm not really sure who did this. I just remember hearing about it in my psychology class, where like, what defines creepy, and the first thing I can think of right now was when we talked about why so many people have a phobia of spiders. And then we're like, well, because their knees or elbows, whatever you want to call it, are placed higher than their bodies. And she was telling us, like, oh, imagine a spider just like having the legs downwards. That would just be a bug, right? That's a bug. And I'm like, shit, man, that's true. And she's like, yeah, and now think of a human crawling like a spider. And I'm like, yeah.
I immediately think of the scene from The Exorcist. The girl,
Yeah.
like, oh my god.
Or the movie Mama.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I honestly, I don't even remember the entire movie, but the short film is the one that got me more than the movie, honestly. But I honestly thought that spiders, people have a phobia of them. It's because they are poisonous. I didn't know that it's because of their appearance or like because of their legs. I seriously didn't know that. I honestly thought it's because of, like, oh, it's poisonous and it can kill you and all that.
First of all, that is an assumption that was made, and something that was taught to us in psychology class. That is not the only reason somebody might have an arachnophobia. And the second thing is, like, where I come from, like, poisonous spiders just don't exist, but still a lot of people have a phobia,
Yeah.
So that was just like a theory, let's say, not an assumption, a theory, maybe alongside many other theories. But that one, when I thought about it, I was like, that makes perfect sense. That's creepy as hell.
Yeah, I always thought spiders are quite intelligent. And honestly, I don't have a phobia. It's just that I would say, like, yeah, now that I think of it, I always get creeped out by how long their their legs are. It's a bit weird to me, because in my native place, they're like really, they're not huge. It's just that they are very slender. So basically, I think humans are creeped out by anything that is quite disproportionate.
Yeah.
Like, if you have way too long legs or way too long arms, then people are creeped out. Wow, we just went from what's that entity's name? I forgot. The 8 feet tall women to phobias.
Yeah. Spider phobia. Okay, in next week's episode, we will talk about spider women.
Yeah. If there is, oh my god, that would be so creepy if there is.
There is so many. I can think of like 3 on the top of my head about spider women right now.
We know a Spider-Man, the friendly neighborhood superhero.
Yeah.
But I don't know why Spider Woman gives it kind of a creepy ring to it. I don't know why. Why that
Because
is.
you're thinking of a Black Widow, maybe.
Ah, yes. Yes, and not the one from the Avengers. I'm thinking of the spider.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Maybe because like, oh man, I'm gonna get political here, but like every time it's like I think
It's a
women
woman, yeah.
entities seem more sinister because you do like they just seem smart to me. They seem intelligent and they can trick you, you know? And when
yeah.
it's like a man, it's just like that's just dangerous because
Yeah.
it like might kill you because it's strong, you know?
Yeah.
But like
I mean,
the more
and also I feel like women entities, they never back down, and most of them, they're full of hatred, like because
Yeah,
maybe
they've
they
been
were
wronged.
wronged. Yes, and that's why it becomes way too intense. And yeah.
She's like shit fam, like she has a reason to not like
Yeah.
me. She has a reason to kill me, and it's like, look, very creepy, Elle. Very creepy.
So that is it for this episode. Thank you for those creepy stories. I'm not gonna sleep tonight,
You're
I guess.
very welcome. That was my goal. If you want to listen to our previous episodes, we talked about Portuguese and Singaporean folklore, as well as German and Indian folklore in our very, very first episode. We hope you enjoyed listening and to see you soon next time.
If you'd like to submit your own paranormal, strange, your own town folklores or even urban legends of your own country, please write to us on Doe Sol Horror Podcast at gmail.com, or as we have mentioned in the previous episode, and we are going to mention again, we have a Discord server, so you can share your stories on Discord too if email sounds a bit too primitive for you. So yeah, the email address and Discord server link will be mentioned in the description or the episode info or in the about section of the podcast. So please do write to us or join us in our Discord community.
Thank you all so much for watching and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.